both of you said in multiple ways, we need to speak up, even if they're difficult conversations, John, and we need to raise our voice, and in particular, have a sense of the impact we can have. So John, I'd like to just ask you to say, what are the kind of things we can discuss with financial institutions that would be helpful to you to move this agenda forward? And then Lisa, I want you to tell us, why should we all believe that we can make this happen nationally?
Well, a few thoughts. Number one, if it wasn't clear, I'll say it again. We just have to take down the walls, and we've got to be willing to talk directly and straight with one another. And that goes both ways. You're probably better at telling us than we are explaining to you why some of the concepts you have may not be sustainable, may not work. And so I think pressing each other to really talk about the core issues, and it's only through a real dialogue around the real core issues that we can begin to understand each other and then allow our creativeness together to find solutions. And I think when I think about this space, and especially in trying to help people move into the mainstream, getting clear about the costs and the prices and the approaches. I think that is probably the elephant in the room that we probably haven't come to grips with. And I know that our team spends lots of time figuring out what things cost, how we believe we need to price them to have them be sustainable. What you don't want us to do is create something that lasts for a couple of years and it's a fad and it's gone. That would be the worst thing we can do. And so I would just encourage us to get the elephant in the room, squarely on the table, encourage us to be frank about what our knowledge of the issue is. You push us, that's great, I'm okay with that. And so I think that's it. And then the other thing I think is, let's continue to look for these. Let me give you an example. Wells Fargo has changed dramatically over my years. And I remember when we were a small regional player. And so our approach has always been community by community, local city by local city. And I think one of the things we're trying to learn how to do is, this whole notion of scalability fits perfectly for us. Our strength tends to be city by city, but increasingly trying to figure out how we can leverage that city by city into something that has a national approach is really important. Let me give you an example of something we've done recently. I mentioned this neighborhood lift program. So it feels very local. We go city to city to do down payment assistance and financial education. But underneath that is an infrastructure that we can pack it up and move it from Los Angeles to Atlanta in a couple of weeks. And so, and having partners who can be there to help us. A neighborhood lift, I should have mentioned this, NeighborWorks is a critical partner for us. Without NeighborWorks, neighborhood lift would not happen. Because to be honest, we provide resources, we provide people, but frankly, NeighborWorks is doing a lot of heavy lifting on our behalf. So I assume they may be here. I want to thank them publicly, but that's the kind of partnership that there are things we can do, but candidly, we needed a national partner who could allow this to be scalable. So let's get the elephant in the room. Let's continue to find relationships where we can really do something that we can repeat and sustain from place to place quickly.
Thank you. Lisa.
So if I can, John's inspiring, so I'm almost forgetting your question, but I think it was, what can we do now? What can somebody at the local level do now to affect policy? And I think this conference is really a good place to practice it. I think if you're touching a human being somewhere, with an asset product. I think one of the most powerful things you have is a story. And just like Director Cordray was talking about know before you owe and tell us your story, we've got a story to tell. And we need those stories to be in newspapers, in op-eds. You need to tell them to the leaders who you send to Washington. And our stories are the stories of hope. They're not even the bad stories. They're the stories of people being at that pivot point, being ready to save for a house. They're stories of young people, this stat of 6 times more likely to go to college because there's a college savings account, even no matter what it had in it. That's a powerful story. So we need the echoes to be part of our national dialogue, and I do think we need help at the national level. Also, those stories are ones where it's 90% individual effort and 10% boost from, the match or there's just so much more about individual effort. And I think that will resonate so well with how a whole economy moves forward. So I'd say arm yourself with the stories and then find a way to tell it. It's so much more credible when it's coming authentically from a local place. If it has to be washed through me, I'm happy to try to say it, but it'll be even more credible coming from where you are. So, Andrea, I think it's a time. We've got stories of hope. John, you mentioned correctly, we do have stories of challenge. And some of what we've done has been hard and costly. We're not at the final product. It will be very different to run a child account when the match money and the original money is all in place than having to run around and raise that and figure it out and wonder whether you got it next year. It's a different proposition, and I think it'll be a different business proposition. If everybody had a tax match for whatever savings account they would put it in, that would be a different proposition. So, but I think for this room, we need your evidence that this is really possible and that this is really part of our future.